Hey, how's it going? So I just beat God of War Ragnarok, and it has been a little over a year now where I've been playing through the entire series. It's always a series that I've really wanted to get into, and I've just never really found the time, or like I didn't have a PlayStation or whatever. But I knew I was going to get a PlayStation last year, so I decided to emulate God of War 1 through 3, and then I got a PSP, and I played through Chains of Olympus and Ghosts of Sparta, and now I've just beaten Ragnarok as well as 2018 last year. And it has some of the best acting in not only video games, but I think media in general, or maybe you can just say voice acting. And it's one of my favorite video game stories. Just the entire saga, or whatever you want to call it, is incredible. And it has had me thinking about how I relate to video games, how they shape my life, how I use them to approach my own issues, see myself through these fictional characters, and explore my own personal experiences. And this isn't anything new. This has been something that people have done forever. It's why people wrote books. I guess people still do write books, but you know what I mean. A lot of people do this through movies. That's, I think, the most traditional medium nowadays that a lot of people have these experiences through. Watching a character grow and change throughout a film can be life-changing for a lot of people. And I think video games usually get dumbed down a lot. A lot of people, when they think of video games, only think of something like Fortnite or Call of Duty, 2K. And that makes sense because those are the big ones. Those are the standouts, the ones that sell tens of millions of copies every year. Video games have always been my main hobby, but more so in the past couple years, I've made an active effort to explore the medium more. Like I said, I just got a PlayStation, something I never had, so I started playing through games like Sly Cooper, God of War, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank. But with it being my main hobby and a lot of people having a pretty surface level understanding of it, which is fine, I do think there is a stigma around it, whether they're thinking of, the overweight World of Warcraft player or the teenager that's screaming on Call of Duty. I've always downplayed my relationship with video games because I think a lot of people have maybe a cringy outlook on those who take part or have maybe what you'd call an obsession with it. But over the past couple years, I've put that aside and I've started genuinely trying to describe to people and being more open about my hobby. But specifically going back to God of War Ragnarok, it really had me thinking about how I connect to these games on a personal level. I've talked about many times how I think video games are art, and essentially are the most art. They are the culmination of everything, writing, music, storytelling, acting, cinematography. It's everything put into an experience. And on top of that, you control it. Now, obviously, there are differences. Some games are open world, have open-ended stories, multiple endings. Some games are very linear, have you essentially walking through hallways. But at the end of the day, in most cases, you are pushing forward on that analog stick or on that D-pad. You are the person who controls your own experience. And that, I think, is what makes it stand out from something like movies or books or whatever, maybe even music. And some people actually don't like that. Some people like to just sit down and watch a movie or sit down and listen to music, have the creator of whatever that may be convey a message in a very linear fashion. And that's completely fine. But I do think video games stand out because you are taking part in it, which makes it so unique, other than, like I said, it being a culmination of everything, really. Specifically with God of War, if you know anything about it, I won't spoil anything here, but especially with 2018 and Ragnarok, it explores, a father-son relationship, as well as plenty of other themes that I won't get into, but specifically with Kratos and Atreus. And it was one of those moments where it had me thinking about my own life, my own relationship with my dad, which is something I haven't talked about and will continue not to do so, just because, super personal stuff like that isn't really something I delve into. But seeing the way Kratos talks to Atreus, seeing him have outbursts and then later console Atreus, seeing Atreus act out and later grow, had me thinking about times in my life where I've been yelled at or I've acted immature. There were moments where I saw Kratos almost act like how my dad would act in the past. And it really started having me think about games as a whole. Where would I be if I didn't play all these games? If I didn't experience all these characters convey a lot of these messages to me. And I know a lot of them are simple and that may seem, maybe stupid or cringe, but I was alone for a lot of my life. I almost take pride in the fact that I grew so much on my own. I think a lot of people, when they're alone and don't have parental figures, don't have close friends, they fall deeper and deeper into a hole. And I was for a very long time, but I was able to get myself out of that. And I can't sit here and confidently tell you a big part of that wasn't because of the the games I was playing, the stories I was experiencing, the messages I was taking in. There have been multiple characters, and I have some here that I would sort of just like to talk about because I think that they've really made an impact on me. Like I said, I already talked about Kratos. I think Kratos as a character is one of the best evolutions of any character that I've ever seen, really. I know Ragnarok is a little contentious, and even the creator himself says that they don't like where they took Kratos, but I truly think it is one of the best character progressions or growths or whatever you want to call it that we've ever seen. Genuinely, I do think that, and Christopher Judge did such an amazing job, and obviously old Kratos was great as well, but I think they handled that story in probably the best way that they could have, and that's obviously just talking about a story perspective. I have my own critiques in regards to the RPG elements or the combat compared to the old combat. That's not exactly what I'm talking about here. Another series that I've been really getting into is Yakuza, or Like a Dragon. I'm currently on Yakuza 5, and I've played about 7 of the games, counting 0 and most recently Pirate Yakuza, and I intend to see my way through the entire series. But that is a franchise that many people have praised for the character development and how they relate to the characters, specifically with Kiryu or Majima or Akiyama, all these characters that we sit with and grow with for hundreds, in some cases, of hours. Seeing Kiryu be a father to Haruko is something that I really grew onto. In Yakuza 1 or Yakuza Kiwami, whatever you want to call it, I didn't really care for Haruko all that much. Not that I actively disliked her or anything, it just wasn't really anything that I was super invested in. But at this point in Yakuza 5, which I only just recently started, I'm super invested in their relationship, seeing how Kiryu went from, this young guy really struggling to find himself in Yakuza 0 to being, in a lot of cases, a really mature and good stepdad to Haruko, and not even Haruko. In Yakuza 3, you have all of the kids in the Morning Glory orphanage. Obviously, if you know me, you know I love Sonic, and Sonic, I think, has been, in a large part due to Sega, degraded into this sort of just quippy, boring character. I think from generations onward, pretty much up until recently with Frontiers and now Sonic X Shadow, Sonic was just this boring blank slate character. I think they were chasing that almost Mickey Mouse-like figure that Nintendo has successfully done. Mario, other than some rare exceptions with something like A Thousand Year Door, is kind of a blank slate character, which is fine, by the way. But I think what made a lot of people fall in love with Sonic was that real, almost free spirit, or whatever you want to call it, that he was. Sonic and the Black Knight is kind of a bad video game. It's not great. I know it has its fans, as does every Sonic game, but that has maybe the best story in the entire franchise. And the speech that Sonic gives at the end to whatever that elf girl's name is, I forget, is something I think about maybe like once a week. Even Frontiers, a game that I admit is very flawed, has some really touching moments between Sonic and Tails, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic and Amy, Sage and Eggman. I got made fun of my whole life for liking Sonic because, yeah, he was a laughingstock for a very long time, and I don't think the creators gave him the respect that he deserves. And now we're seeing this payoff, in a sense, where I am being rewarded for sticking through, investing time into this character. But those moments from games that maybe aren't even that good, like I mentioned with Sonic and the Black Knight, genuinely changed me. Like, I do think so. I've watched those clips and read those dialogues hundreds of times. Seriously, I have. And there are plenty of other examples. Clive from Final Fantasy XVI or Master Chief. I could just name characters on and on and on, but I think you get the point. And I did want to touch on what I said about Sonic the Black Knight in regards to bad video games, because I've mentioned games like God of War, games like Yakuza, even in some cases games like Sonic, where these are amazing franchises with some insanely high highs, but there are games that are otherwise mediocre or in some cases bad that still have stuck with me just because of some little quote that they gave. Halo Infinite is one that comes to mind. I don't love Halo Infinite, just like I don't love Halo 4 or 5, but I love the franchise as a whole. But regardless, that little speech that Master Chief gives about how everyone makes mistakes is such a good fucking moment, man, and one that I think about pretty frequently. And that's an instance where a game doesn't even have to be this 10 out of 10 masterpiece. It's kind of why I like 7 out of 10 games, because there are these just little nuggets in there that really stick with you, that I think in some cases people just push aside because it's not that Red Dead Redemption 2. It's not that Elden Ring. It isn't that 10 out of 10 experience. But I think all video games have the opportunity to move you or to make an impact on you. And I've talked a lot about games like, God of War, obviously, or even Halo or Final Fantasy, where these are very story-based games with defined characters. But I think that you don't even have to have that. Hell, you don't even really have to have dialogue. You know, something like Fez, which I know does have some dialogue, obviously, had a huge impact on me, even though, you know, it doesn't have those deep moments like something like God of War. But just the music and the environments have stuck with me and have inspired a lot of what I even do on this channel, a lot of the thumbnails I'm making. I mean, where do you think I get the ideas for a lot of this stuff? And I think this is just a very long way of saying that I think video games are important and they mean a lot to me, and I think they mean a lot to a lot of people. And I think we're going to keep seeing that as the younger generations like myself get older. Our parents and their parents grew up on TV and books and all this type of stuff, and they all have their whatever shows that really changed them and really meant a lot to them. And I think while that obviously is still around, I think we're going to see a lot more of that in regards to video games. And I think you already have. So many people that aren't even gamers nowadays can remember specific scenes from something like a Final Fantasy, something like a Kingdom Hearts, that is going to stick with them probably until they die. And I think that is so cool. And it's why I will always have respect for really art as a whole, but specifically with video games. And it's why I am more open to talking about them now. I don't think they're cringe anymore. And I think that we need, as a society, to move past that stereotype, because I think it's stupid. And I think it is really closed-minded and short-sighted. Really, I do think that. But yeah, I think it's going to be it. A lot of this is actually why I created my second channel, which I'll have in the description, where I talk about whatever game I'm currently playing, because I just like to talk about this stuff. I've thought before about making videos on specific video games and my own experience with them, and I think that is something I'm going to do. I just got to find what game I actually want to talk about. But yeah, I got Twitter, stuff in the description, my second channel as well. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. See ya.